Hello. So I'm going to begin with a question from the Tara Westover reading. So, what are some of the literacies that Tara Westover learned while living at home, and how might they conflict with some of the ones she learned while she was away from home? So, Tara Westover learned her initial literacies from the Book of Mormon and other religious texts. Her family would not visit the doctor or receive medicine because of their beliefs, and they viewed it as sinful. Her parents also did not value formal education, and she was on her own to learn. She embraced her parents' beliefs that government schooling would brainwash her, but this mindset changed when she went to BYU. When she learned academic methods, she realized by improving her academic skills that they were at odds with her parents' faith-based beliefs of the world. She gained a worldview of science and was struggling to understand her family's perspectives. This caused a large split in her family because of the rejection of their beliefs. Next, how are literacy and gaining new literacies related? Ambition, desire for knowledge, rebellion, or even dissatisfaction? So from my point of view, the initial literacies that you gain as a child are typically your core values. But at some point, these ideas will be challenged when you're exposed to new things in life, and you will begin to ask yourself questions. Also, some people aren't satisfied with the things that they were taught, and they want to find a different answer to the issues that they are dealing with. This can be a leading factor of rebellion towards their parents and even other family members. Next, I'm going to move on to the Frederick Douglass reading. How did Douglass's descriptions of Mr. and Mrs. Auld make these characters come to life for the reader? Douglass initially makes Mrs. Auld seem sympathetic towards him by teaching him how to read and write, and makes her seem as though she has decent morals. However, when Mr. Auld ends up barring Mrs. Auld from teaching him, this changes her. She ends up becoming cruel and gives the reader an idea of how slavery dehumanized people and how oppressive slave owners could be towards their slaves. This makes the reader aware of how, instead of viewing Frederick as an equal, Mrs. Auld completely changed her perspective on teaching him how to read and write just because of the norms of slavery that were present at the time. Lastly, what did Douglass's tone, use of language, and commentary reveal about him, and why literacy was so important? Douglass uses the dialogue of Mr. and Mrs. Auld to display that he was hurt by the fact that he wasn't able to be educated because of his race. However, he uses a tone with feelings of hope when he shows how he received education from his peers to show that he was willing to go to any limit to gain knowledge. Douglass was explicit in his language and put the reader in his shoes in terms of how he was treated as a slave. He shows his frustration and struggle and identifies the obstacles that he faced. It shows the emotional toll that it took on him, but also shows his determination to learn how to read. He also uses language to show how he was inspired to teach others because of the desire that he had for literacy. He uses racial slurs from Mr. and Mrs. Auld to describe how he was viewed from the perspective of them, and why they felt that he shouldn't be educated. His language displays the dehumanization he received and reveals how oppression that he faced made him have a burning desire to learn to be educated. He comments also on how his desire to learn made him a target of suspicion for Mr. and Mrs. Auld because they didn't want him to learn how to read.